Hello and welcome to Unify's webinar on 101 Things You Should Know About Q. This is your host, Paul Lamelli. I think we're going to go ahead and get started today. So we have a lot of people logging on this morning, and for those of you that are new to the Unify Corporation, we are a publicly traded software company that has been in business for over 30 years. We're probably best known for delivering the first relational database to the Unix environment about 30 years ago. And since then, we have delivered software development products that run across different databases and platforms geared more to building and modernizing business applications for the business application developer who places a premium on productivity over low-level coding. Today, our business has expanded beyond databases and development products into migration solutions as well as email archiving. And for today's webinar, we do encourage questions. So if you have one, please use the Q&A button on your WebEx toolbar. It's the button that is marked with a question mark. WebEx also provides a chat feature, but we ask that you use the Q&A button because it makes it easier for both myself and Martin to monitor just a single panel for questions. And with that, for today's webinar, our presenter is going to be Martin Tietz. Now, Martin has been with Gupta, now Unify, for I think it's 15 years now, and I believe it was in 2 different stints. And Martin has held roles here, including support engineer, product marketing manager, and director of product management. And Martin is joining us this morning from Germany, where I believe it is already early evening. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Martin to begin the presentation and demo.
Thank you very much, Paul. Yes, in fact, it is almost beer time here in Germany. But before I go have my evening drink, I will give you a nice presentation about the 101 things you need to know about Unify Q. So here's the agenda. It starts with step 1 and goes all the way to step 101. No, just kidding. So first, a quick introduction of Q version 101, the areas of improvement in that release, certainly a demonstration of that, because that software is really nice to view and nice and easy to use. A quick overview of all the features of Q. I will talk a bit about the Q EDP that can be used to build into applications and deploy together with your applications. Give you a few tips, Q tips, and I will talk about the using or reusing Quest query and report files, and I actually will show you that. And then, of course, question and answers. And as Paul mentioned, please put your questions into the Q&A panel of the WebEx tool. So the goal of Q 101, was to implement the feedback that we got from the early adopters of Q. And that feedback was, in summary, first of all, managing database connections was a bit flaky. So there were several issues there. All these issues have been resolved. And there was one thing, actually, managing connections was quite good for Oracle and SQL Server, but it wasn't as well implemented for SQL-based connections. So it did require manual editing of your SQL INI configuration file, which now is obsolete as well. Then we had the request for more complex query conditions that allow to use parentheses in the condition. And another request was for unique identifiers when using duplicate column names. For example, you do a join of 2 tables, and both tables contain an ID column that has the same name. Then, previous versions and Report Builder would only display ID, and you wouldn't know from what table the ID column would be. So now that has changed, and you will, for duplicate names, you will see the table name in front of the column. So a few nice and sweet enhancements to Q. So the areas of improvement. Connections is very much enhanced, so all the flakiness and all the instability there has gone. We now have an automatic import of the SQL-based connections from existing SQL.ini files. So you don't have to open SQL.ini anymore, copy things from an existing SQL.ini to the new one of Q. These things have truly gone, and Q has become a real, true end-user product when it comes to connections as well now. And the enhanced query dialog allow you to use the parenthesis feature I just mentioned, unify column identifiers, and these features are available in the Report Builder 5.2 Service Pack 1 as well. You might have noticed that a good part of Q actually are Report Builder features, the reporting and query features. So those two products are really in sync, and all the things you can do with Report Builder you can do with Q, and the other way around. So let me do a demonstration of Q101. First, configuring connections. So let me start up Q here. This is the 101 release, and I have a, so to speak, an empty or unconfigured SQL.ini file now with Q. I have not created a single database connections with Q. So if I want to open a table now, I have to configure a connection first. So let me choose the database ribbon bar here and get that up here. And what I want to do really is to show you the import of SQL.ini connections. As you can see, there are no connections available right now, just a list of databases that you might connect to. And I just click on Import SQL.ini connections here. And this opens a dialog that shows you a location of an INI file that it's currently using, which is the one that I'm using. I want a different one, so choose that button here and go to the right location that holds the file that I want to use. Actually, I have one, this one here, I reuse over and over again, that contains all my remote connections to the databases that are located in California. So what I'm doing right now is taking over the connections that I've created with, let's say, with Team Developer version 4.2 or other tools, and now I can take over these connections by just enabling this checkbox here, and I just select the type of database or the database name. So you can see it's a brand SQL base, server name is Neptune, DB name is LCMS. So you can go ahead and select all the databases you want and import them here. So I want all these here. Now let me click import, and now you see the SQL base tree here got filled with these connections. And now I really can connect to all these databases here. Let me do that by providing a username and password. I can force Q to store that password encrypted. I can do a test connection. Yep, that worked. So that save changes. Yep. So now I've got a connection to server 1 island database, as you can see in the status bar below. And now I can do all the things I can do with Q, like, for example, opening a table, and that table. Hello? You can sort the columns of that table just by clicking in the header. You can switch on the group by box. I'm sorry that this shows up in German, but that is because I'm using a German Windows here. So now I can drop columns onto the group by box, and the grid will be grouped by that. I can do a quick content print preview here and print that, or I can create a complex report from that query. I can export that data to several formats like CSV, HTML, true Excel file, XML, whatever you want. And if I close this view here in the grid, I can also, if I go to edit mode, I can also update data, and if I have rights to update data in the database, I can save that to the database. So data maintenance is one part of Q here. So what you have seen is how I could configure database connections. Now let me give you an example of the new query dialog. So if I create a new query, I get the list of tables in the database, this query dialog with several tabs here. Let me choose a table, the company table, and then I go to the conditions tab, and let me just increase the size of this one again. And you see there's two new columns, left and right bracket for setting column conditions. So let me define a little bit more complex condition here. Like, for example, I want all the rows that have a phone number in it, so is not null. And I want to add several more conditions, and I want to have data from, let's say several countries. And let me do that, where country equals United States. So that should really work. And then I can add or country equals Canada. And I can add even one more for like country equals Italy. So now to conclude this query, I have to set brackets. So after the and, I want to have an array of or conditions. So I open the left bracket after the and here and close it after Italy. So that these ors, a set of or is behind the and. So let's go to the SQL tab here, and there you can see how that is looking now. Where phone is not null is the first condition, and country equals USA, or country equals Canada, or country equals Italy. So that's the correct condition I wanted to have. And by pressing OK, I just get the results here. So this is a more complex query condition. Let me go back here and just one more thing, so you see the unique column name descriptors. Let me add the invoice table here. So now you have a company ID in the invoice table and a company ID in the company table. And if you go to conditions and drop down here, you got company.company ID, company.company name, and invoice.company ID and invoice.company name. So you can exactly identify what column to choose for that condition. The same, of course, in sorting. You have company.company ID, company.company name. So you won't be mixing columns because you can exactly identify them. So this, and now once you have defined a query in Q, you can always go into the report preview mode, and then you generate a default report. This default report, I just need to move away the WebEx tools here. I changed to design mode, and now I can go ahead and design that report, with all the design things I have, like formatting, change the font, and then, of course, I can do watermarks, just like in Report Builder. I want to have the confidential watermark in size 90, color red, apply a washout effect, OK, preview, and then I need to decrease the size. It created a pretty wide report, but you can, of course, change that and reformat that. So now you have created that report, and you can now also print that as a PDF. Let me save that on a desktop. And all pages, set all the PDF settings you want. And here should be good. Let me see if I can go to the desktop now. Desktop. So here's the PDF file that just got created from within Q. Yeah, see the nice watermark there. You can also add your company logos as a watermark and things like that, of course. So, quick overview of the Q features and Q101 specialties. Let me close Q again here, so go back to the presentation. A quick overview of what Q does, and you saw some of this already now. Easy and powerful queries. So, define your queries by point and click, define the join conditions, define pretty complex query conditions. You can, of course, share your query files. That's something I didn't show you right now, is that all the files, or all the things you do, you can save in files. Actually, the queries and reports are combined in one file type, which is CQT files. That's really something new compared to Quest, where we had separate files for queries and, where we had separate files for queries and for reports. Those are now combined in one, and I will show you later on how you can combine existing Quest files into new Q files, really. And you also see on this ribbon bar below that you also can export query data. So you create a nice query. For example, some things I'm doing because I'm in product marketing, I'm sending you those annoying newsletters you get every month from us. So I have to extract that data, contact data from a database, and get that data into a online marketing system that is not hosted within Unify. So I export that data into comma-separated files, load that up into that marketing system, and send you guys all that newsletter, for example. And then, along with queries is reporting. Powerful but easy formatting options. You have images, graphs, rich text, cross-tabular reports. You can print on paper. You can print into RTF files, rich text format files, and PDFs, as I showed you. And you have that easy sharing features of reports using PDF files, of course. So, and the report and query files are compatible with Report Builder, and you can import Quest report and query files. Data sharing. Build queries, export data, create new table from an activity. So you create a query and then create a table from that. Share exported data, load exported data into other systems, load data files into databases. So these are all additional things that Report Builder doesn't have. All the data management, data import, export, even the data editing capabilities. When you open a table and change table data, those features are not available in Report Builder, and you need to have Q for that. And then you also have a database scripting, which is basically a built-in SQL talk that allows you to create any SQL against your databases with very complex queries like unions, subselects, and things like that. Now, a few Q tips. So, how to reuse Quest queries and reports. You might have heard that, or you might have tried yourself running the old Quest product on Windows Vista or Windows 7, and that pretty much fails. So, Microsoft has done a pretty good job in supporting 16-bit environments until Windows XP, but that doesn't work on Vista and Windows 7 anymore. So you're really forced to use Q in the future and not use Quest anymore if your users have more modern operating systems like Vista or Windows 7. So single files, which is a Quest query, for example, a QQT file. You can open a query. You can open a Quest query file using the Open Query Data ribbon item. When you close that activity, Q will ask you to save that file as a CQT file instead of a QQT file, and this was with Quest. And you can open a QRP file, which is a Quest or team developer report. You can modify the report design and preview with dummy data. or you can apply that to a query if you want to. But that's actually the next step that I want to show. Reusing Quest queries and reports with Quest linked query and report files. What you do to open those in those Quest files in Q, you first open a query QQT file, then you change to report preview mode and go to the background of the report and right click. You get the report object menu, and from there you choose import template. Import template allows you to choose a QRP file. You choose the QRP file that is associated with the query file, preview the report in Q, save as a new combined CQT file. So that's pretty much it. A few steps that will make that very easily possible to use Quest files in Q. So let me show you that. Actually, my machine that I'm using for the demonstration here is Vista, so that doesn't allow me to run Quest anymore. So I need to go to a remote desktop session that has, I think, Windows 2000 on it. And this can so I hope you can all see that. So let me start Quest here. So Quest. What I want to do is open a report. And I have prepared a report which is called quest.qrp. I open that report, and that happens to be a report that is linked to a query. So now Quest asks me if I want to open the linked query. I want to do that, yes. So basically, it has now loaded the report in preview mode, and behind that is the query that is serving the data for that report. This report actually is a summary report of website downloads from our website. The titles in bold there, like Business Advantages of Team Developer Com+ applications, are white papers and other downloads from our website. And below that are the email addresses and download dates of the people that downloaded these items from our website. And I can just go through those, and I have a quite nice report. Page 4. So here's an area that has 288 downloads, for example. So in design mode, this report looks like that. And you have the query behind that, and in Quest, you have several menu items where you choose the columns, define the condition, and in the conditions, there's one condition defined that date is larger than January 1st, 2010. That's pretty much the query condition here. Okay, so let me now close this little Quest thingy and go back to Q. I did close Q, I think, yeah. So Q. In Q now, I actually want to open a query data. And to do that, I have to connect now to the right database, which is the Gupta web database. I have to provide my username and password. Test the connection. Now that is, as you can see, is slower than with Quest. The reason is that Quest did run in a remote desktop in California, so it had very quick access to the database. And this Q here is running on my machine in Munich and has remote access to California. So bear with me if it's slower. That is not a problem of Q. That is a problem of the data connection that I have here. But all in all, it's really quite okay, I think. So now I can open the Quest file. I just need to remember where it is. I saved that. Documents. Quest files. So I want to open the Quest query, which is the Quest QQT file. and all I have to do is to point to that file, and it opens that. So that takes the time because now it's really fetching the data from Roseville in California here to Munich. So bear with me for a few seconds. So here we go. This is the data coming from Roseville to Munich. And that is really the Quest query file imported into Q. So now you can go ahead, change that query. If I go to the query definition dialog, and again, all these steps might take a little long, but that's all because it's getting all the catalog information through the World Wide Web here, through VPN connection from Munich to. So here's the data that I'm selecting here. A resource name, a download date, and that one here, and last name, company, and so on. And the conditions tab. In the conditions tab, I should see the one condition that I did show you in Quest before, which is date is larger than January 1st, 2010. So that's exactly what I did in Quest is now available in Q. And if I go into the home ribbon and tell it to save that file, it will save this file as a CQT file, so a quest.cqt file, which is the new format. Replace it, yes. So now I created a Q file out of the query file. Now I really want to create a report and apply the previously defined report to my query here. So I go back to the report ribbon here and go to preview. Oh, I need to restart this. Again, this Gupta web database, connect to it. So open the Quest query. That opens the data source. Again, it's fetching all the data from California. Just a few seconds for that. So here's the data. Still fetching a few rows. Still have the wait cursor here. Increase that, and now I go into report preview. So this is the default report now, but what I really want to do is apply the Quest template, the Quest report that I had before. And I want to do that, yes. And the file is quest.qrp. And now Q goes ahead and applies the Quest report template that I had created in Quest to the query that I also created in Quest. So, and now I'm in preview mode, and I have the exact same report that I did in Quest, I now have in Report Builder. And now let's go to the Home ribbon, save that file, and again, save that as the quest.cqt file, which is the new format of Q and Report Builder for queries. So I can go ahead and do all the things that I want to do, like applying a watermark, use all the new features that this new version has compared to Quest, of course. Let's make it very large. Green with washout effect. See. Oops. Yeah, almost too large for this paper size. Let me just change that. Okay, and now I can print that as a PDF. And save that as a file on my desktop. So that might actually take some time because that is quite a lot of data. Let's just continue with the presentation, and I will show you the oh, it's done. It's just telling me in the status bar, completed printing file. So let me show you that that file right away on my desktop. I think it's this one here. Yeah, so this is the Quest query and report that got converted to Q, and then new features of Q applied to the new report. And then, of course, saved as a PDF file to my desktop. And now I can go ahead and share that data about downloads with my marketing department. For example, it's quite interesting. This report isn't a small report. It got 106 pages, so you can see there's quite some downloads going on our website here. So that was pretty quick, actually, for a remote connection and a 100-page report. Okay. Let's go back to the presentation. Let's talk a bit about what you can do with Q, or how you can configure Q. Unify Q can be installed as a read-only version. That is on installer settings. If you downloaded the trial version from our website, during the install, it will ask you if you want to install the read-only version. Read-only version, actually, this allows data and DML editing even when the connected database user has rights to change data. So an extra layer of security for people that should not mess up the data that they are working with. So basically that allows them to create queries and reporting. Of course, there's the full-featured product. Q includes SQL-Base 11.5, which includes the SQL-Base command setter, which can be used for scheduled backups and things like that. Unify Q has full language support, or a language support of several languages like German, French, Spanish, Portuguese. Default is English. Again, this can be set during installation time, and also at runtime you can change the language setting. You have to close Q then and restart Q, and then it will have the language setting that you have chosen. So if you want to do your application users something good, give them the Q product in your local language that allows them to create additional reports, modify your reports, and do some data maintenance they might not be able to do with your applications. So here's the several products and pricing. The trial version available from our website can be activated to a full product. You don't have to install it. You just apply the PMC that you buy, for example, from our online store for $495, or that you buy through a Unify sales representative or Unify partner. There is a 25-user license, a 50-user license available as well of Unify Q. And additionally, there's the Q EDP, which allows ISVs that sell, for example, their team developer applications to embed Q into their application installers. And so the users of the ISV application or your applications can use Unify Q without having to enter a PMC, without having to do product activation and registration on our website. So that is a really nice way of deploying Q and more usability features to your end users. And Unify Sales will be happy to help you with pricing for that. And that's really the Q 101 overview I wanted to give to you. Any questions?
And this is, again, your host, Paul Lamelli, just reminding you that if you do have any questions, to use the Q&A button on your WebEx toolbar marked with a question mark. We'll go ahead and give you just a quick minute to go ahead and get your questions in, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. Okay, so the first question that we have coming in, actually this came in a little bit earlier in the presentation, and the question was, is there a read-only version of Q available? And I think that Martin answered that question here during the demonstration, and that is definitely available, and it's something that you can set at install time. Second question that came in, are trial versions of Q available? And the answer to that is yes. You can go to our website under products, and under Q on the web page you will see a link where you can download a 45-day trial version of Q there. Now, I think if there are no further questions, that we're going to go ahead and conclude today's webinar on 101 Things You Should Know About Q. If you have any further questions, please contact your local Unify representative, and you can also send any email questions to info@unify.com. And also, we want to make sure that you fill out the surveys at the conclusion of this webinar, and feel free to suggest any topics that you would like Unify to cover in the future. Several of the webinars that we've done in the past have been based on the input that we received from customers like yourself. So thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.